It's been a while since we've done this.
It really has.
We also have a big backlog of unreleased material that isn't happening.
Well, I know that I think I'm in charge of editing like the next classic Doctor Who discussion that comes chronologically, I think.
I honestly don't remember, but I believe you.
Yeah, I don't really remember. I only know because for the last month I've had this nagging sense that I'm supposed to be doing something that I'm not doing, and I feel like it's that. It could very well be something else, but I think it's that.
Do you have any like pets that you've forgotten to feed, or that you've forgotten that you even have?
I don't think so.
I'm Tom Dickinson.
And I'm Louis Midas.
And this is The Cloister Room,
a podcast about Doctor Who and other things. I really like the new opening titles.
Oh, me too.
They're just so cool.
I like the face. It's not as in your face, so to speak, as some of the faces of the past that were in Doctor Who theme tunes, but the face is back.
Yeah, I did like that. Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah, and even some of the patterns and whatnot looked very much like something you'd see in kind of like 60s Doctor Who or 70s, and I like that a lot. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's a lot more patterny than swirling vortex of clouds or whatever.
Right. And that was very nifty.
And going along with that, there's also a new TARDIS interior. Yes.
Yeah, I like the new TARDIS interior. I think it's it feels a lot more like the classic series TARDIS.
It does. It's much more mechanical, I think. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the previous 11th Doctor one was pretty mechanical as well, but it's a little bit more futuristic, I guess.
Yeah, because the 10th Doctor, well, 9th and 10th Doctor's TARDIS was very organic-ish, and it was also it was green, but it had a lot of orange and sort of colors, and I guess more yellow in it, and then it seemed like the 11th Doctor's TARDIS at first was like way more in terms of orange and like that sort of bright, sort of warm color palette, and now it's kind of been thrown into this sort of cooler, temperature-wise, that is, color palette, which I like, and it's just very different from anything we've seen in the new series at all. Although in that respect, with the cooler color temperatures, that also reminds me of the launcher TARDIS.
That's true,
but it doesn't quite feel as
evil.
Yeah, there we go, evil. That works.
It is spooky though.
It is a little, but yeah, it's funny because it does really remind me of classic Doctor Who, because it seemed like, at least, well, no, I guess, for at least some of the Doctors, the control room seemed really kind of dark, and I'm trying to remember what Doctor that was. I think sometime during the 4th Doctor era, I remember seeing it being kind of darkish.
In the 4th Doctor era, there's the secondary control room with the wood paneling. That's not the one you're referring to, is it?
Oh, it might be, actually.
Because, I mean, there's the regular control room, which, changes a bit throughout the classic series, but it's the same basic, design principle, except for there's a time when the 4th Doctor has his secondary control room, which is a sort of different thing. I've been watching a lot of 60s Doctor Who recently.
Yeah.
And I feel like even though the TARDIS is, it's got these brightly colored gleaming white interiors, in black and white it looks really shadowy and moody, as opposed to I feel like during the 70s and 80s there are times when it's too bright and too white. So I feel like this TARDIS feels to me like all of the other TARDISes put together.
Huh, yeah.
Which is kind of also how I feel about the opening, which is really good considering this is the beginning of the 50th anniversary year.
Yeah, yeah. I like it's sort of, I guess you could say retrospective like that, where it's kind of embracing the entirety of its history, which is something that's very cool. Yeah, I wasn't sure if because I actually, I had heard that they were changing the TARDIS interior, and I wasn't sure I was going to like it, but I actually really do.
They released a picture a few days before, and the picture looked pretty cool, but you can't always tell from a picture how it's going to look when you film it.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, so all the changes they've made, I like, and I am embracing.
Me too. And I think the reason they changed it was because they moved to a different studio.
Oh, really?
And so at that point, they faced the decision, well, should we bring the TARDIS set over, or should we just make a new one? What the hell?
Well, and it was kind of interesting that so I wanted some sort of in-story acknowledgement that the TARDIS interior had changed, although I don't know how that would have come about. And I mean, ultimately, it doesn't really matter.
Well, when we meet the Doctor in the TV movie in 1996, the TARDIS has changed. And when we meet him in Rose in 2005, the TARDIS has changed. And the only real explanation you have there is, well, it's been a while. So I think that's the explanation here, that a long time has passed between The Angels Take Manhattan and A Christmas Carol. We don't have any idea how long, but presumably more than a few weeks.
Yeah, definitely, especially because of how, beaten up the exterior of the TARDIS looks.
Exactly, yeah. And the Doctor's, his change in clothes as well.
Yeah.
Although he does still have Amy's reading glasses.
That's true. It actually, at the beginning of the episode, when he put them on to examine the Snowmen, that really reminded me of the 10th Doctor, and I thought that was kind of fun and cool.
Yeah. Are you hearing lots of backlash against Doctor Who, like I am?
I guess I really haven't been listening for it. No, I haven't.
It's something I see a lot on Tumblr, and I've been using Tumblr a lot more than I've been using Twitter recently, and a lot of the people I follow on Tumblr happen to be connected to, I guess, largely to the YouTube community, because that was just happenstance people I happen to follow, and a lot of those people are people who came on board with the new series and were only ever really fans of the new series and weren't very into the classic series, and I've noticed that a lot of those people in particular have, over the course of the past year or so, decided that they were pretty much done with Doctor Who entirely. I know a popular YouTube person, Alex Day, he did a big article after Asylum of the Daleks talking about how much he hated it and how he was never going to watch Doctor Who again.
Huh.
And another popular YouTube person, Tom McLean, aka Fresned, did the same. And I see a lot of that on Tumblr, and I don't agree with it or really understand it all that much.
Well, what are their major complaints?
I think what their major complaints have to do with the characterization of mostly of the companions, not so much of the Doctor, but of the people around the Doctor. And I think Stephen Moffat definitely does that in a way that's pretty different from how Russell T Davies did it.
Right.
I feel like the people that Russell T Davies had were very much defined by their normalcy and their realness.
Right.
And how, grounded and down to earth they were, and their families and everything. Whereas the people who surround the Doctor in the Moffat era are very much like mythic figures that are kind of like, he is a part of their story and they're a part of his story, and there's a last centurion and a girl who waited, and people with big like Homeric epithets that that kind of thing. They're all big epic figures who, they're not real people. Amy Pond isn't this down to earth girl who's got a job and eats chips in chip shops and has feelings jams with her mother.
I mean, I guess I noticed that, but it's I wouldn't have thought it would be a thing to dislike. I mean, I guess, I don't know. I mean, it's just yeah. I mean, I can't really say that I kind of agree with that sentiment. I mean, it's different, yeah, but I mean, it's not. I don't think it's necessarily bad.
I think it's that combined with it might just be that some people are just tired of Doctor Who.
Could be.
But I think I am immune to ever being tired of Doctor Who.
Yeah, I think I like to think I feel the same way.
Like in Doctor Who, you see a lot of similar plot elements resurfacing all the time. Like, for instance, in this episode, you see in the Snowmen, you see the same old Moffat motif of memory and forgetting.
Oh, yeah.
Is all over the story. Like, you got the memory worm, and you got Clara saying the whole remember me thing, and the Doctor remembering, and yada yada yada. But like I don't know, it is kind of similar, but in the same way that drives some people away, that like really kind of appeals to me. It's like noticing patterns and stuff like that. That's part of what I geek out about regarding Doctor Who. So,
well, there you go. No, yeah, that is cool. It's weird I hadn't noticed that. Well, it's not weird that I hadn't noticed it. Those were two separate thoughts. Yeah, I mean, I like that. I think that's kind of cool. Yeah, I certainly don't have a problem with it. But I mean, like, I think that, like, well, I don't know. I kind of like that there is a sort of definition of the Moffat era, and I kind of, I think that we'll, obviously this is going, there's going to be a time where Stephen Moffat's going to leave the show, and so, I kind of like the idea that we'll be able to look back at this particular point in Doctor Who history and say, like, wow, yeah, that was really distinct and really interesting and totally unique. I mean, obviously, yeah. But yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think something that threw that into really sharp relief was the Power of Three, which kind of it brought more Russell T Davies kind of stuff back into the show, and in doing that, it sort of like highlighted the contrast there.
Yeah, and I do have to say that I know we talked about this, but I did really like I really liked the Power of Three for that sort of difference, but I do like the Moffat era, and I'm certainly not tired of it.
Yeah, I'm not tired of it yet.
I don't really go on Tumblr that much, but so I don't know if anyone I'm following on Tumblr dislikes Doctor Who, but nowadays anyway. But I don't know. It's kind of disappointing though to find out people don't like the things that I like.
Well, Doctor Who's always changing.
That's true.
Not everyone's gonna like everything.
I kind of like that it's constantly changing, though.
I don't know whether you're aware of this, but this story is a prequel to a couple of different stories, Second Doctor stories from the 1960s.
What?
So the villain in this story is the Great Intelligence. Mm-hmm. And the Great Intelligence is a monster from the classic series.
Really?
Yes. In season 5, early in the season, there is a story called The Abominable Snowmen, which is set in the Himalayas and features this thing called the Great Intelligence, which knows about the Doctor from some kind of previous knowledge of him, and is basically the Great Intelligence is controlling robot Yetis. And
okay,
the Yetis are a little bit silly looking. They look a little bit cuddly, but yeah. So that's, and then later in that very same season, there's a story set in the London Underground, which is called The Web of Fear, and that features the return of the Great Intelligence, still controlling robot Yetis, which make a little bit less sense in the London Underground than they do in, say, the Himalayas. But now apparently we know why he has gone to the London Underground, because the Doctor in this episode points that out as a key strategic weakness.
Oh, I was wondering about that. That line struck me as being kind of weird and out of place, and I didn't really know what he was getting at, if he was just being kind of like if he was just making like sort of a non sequitur comment. But no, that's really cool, actually.
Yeah, so it's interesting though that the Doctor says he doesn't remember that, because he makes a comment that he says, that sounds vaguely familiar, but I can't quite remember where from, when he's talking about the notion that the Underground in 1967 would be a strategic weakness. So I wonder whether it's just because, that was hundreds of years ago from his perspective, or if there's a memory thing that's gonna play into it. So that's what the deal is with that. And I know I did see a couple people who I think this was also on Tumblr, who complained that the monster wasn't explained very well and didn't make very much sense, and it's a weird idea, and it just sort of comes out of nowhere. But there is a reference there to the 1960s, and I just watched those stories recently because I've been trying to watch every episode of Doctor Who in order in time for the show's 50th anniversary, and I'm almost done with Patrick Troughton.
So wait, hang on. Was the snow itself in those classic Doctor Who episodes, or was it just the Great Intelligence?
No, the snow wasn't. I guess the Snowmen is kind of the origin story of the Great Intelligence, because in the Snowmen, the snow doesn't have a mind of its own. It gets the mind from Dr. Simeon.
Right.
It gets its consciousness. It's just sort of like a reflective thing.
Right.
That develops into an intelligence because of that. So apparently once it becomes intelligent, it moves to the Himalayas and creates some robot Yeti.
There you go.
And it's like, all right, we're done with actual snowmen. Now we're just going to use abominable snowmen. Just specifically the abominable variety.
Right. It's like an evolution.
Exactly. It's kind of like the psychic pollen from Amy's Choice.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't really have any mind of its own. It just sort of takes from the Doctor in that case.
Yeah.
And by the way, in the classic series, the Great Intelligence is not played by Ian McKellen.
Ah, damn.
It'd be great, but maybe they should do it like George Lucas did, where, he put Hayden Christensen in Return of the Jedi. Maybe they should put Ian McKellen in that.
Yeah, I see nothing wrong with that.
What did you think of Clara?
I thought she was a companion.
But you were wrong.
I was.
Because she didn't end up becoming the companion at the end.
Well, she was kind of a companion for the episode.
True.
But no, she didn't last.
Depends on what your definition of a companion is.
Yeah, I suppose so. I was a little disappointed that she died, because I was really hopeful that, because when I found out this was like a Victorian episode, and it was featuring the new companion for the first time, I was hoping we would get we would get a companion from the past, which is something I think was present in the classic series, but not ever really present in the new series. It's always been a contemporary human.
Yeah, sure.
And I was excited to think that we would be getting, someone from Victorian times. So that was disappointing. However, I guess I'm just really interested to see what's going on with her and what her connection is to the other Oswins.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because maybe it has something to do with, she was in this episode, which features an old returning monster, and then she was also in Asylum of the Daleks, which features the Daleks, the Doctor's oldest enemy. So I wonder if there's some kind of weird way in which she's connected to the Doctor's past. And the reason I'm kind of trying to think along those lines is because, it's the big 50th anniversary, and Moffat knows that, and, whatever he's sort of getting at in terms of the story planning going into that, you think it would have something to do with, paying tribute to the past.
Yeah.
And we've already seen a little bit of that, but I wonder whether there's some kind of grander scheme, but I just don't know.
Nor I. Yeah, that would be a very likely thing for Stephen Moffat to do. It certainly seems like, well, I mean, it goes without saying that there's something special about her. It's only really a matter of finding out what that is.
Yeah, and he had kind of previously suggested that was not the case. Like in interviews and whatnot, he had said, we thought Jenna Louise Coleman was so great that we thought not only would we cast her as the new companion, but we'd also just give her a role in Asylum of the Daleks too, because why not cast her twice as two completely different, unrelated characters?
Right.
But it certainly seems that there's a bit more of a grand plan going on than Moffat would have previously had us believe.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, because if it were just a case of casting, then you'd think the Doctor wouldn't make such a big deal out of it. Unless it's all just some really big red herring.
And she's really just Jenny.
Exactly.
I was quite proud of myself because I figured out during the episode, as soon as she injured herself, I was like, oh, this one's going to die too, and then she's not going to be the companion. And I wonder whether every episode is just going to be the Doctor meets a new version of her, and she dies.
She'll be like the Kenny of Doctor Who?
Essentially, yeah. And
I had that thought as well. Although in the trailer, some soundbite of some random character, they refer to her as the woman twice dead.
Yes, that's true.
So unless that quote is from the first episode where she's still only twice dead and hasn't had a chance to die a third time yet, it seems like it's just a twice off thing. Although, I don't know. I mean, it would be interesting if she kept dying. Like, she's kind of like the reverse Captain Jack, where instead of being unable to die, she's unable to stay alive. So I'm interested to know, what the deal is with what I guess you could say is the universe keeping its end of the bargain.
Right.
And populating the world with a ton of Jenna Louise Coleman's.
Yeah, that's going to be kind of interesting. I'm a little bit wary going in because the thing about the way Stephen Moffat handles these mysteries is, as we've kind of observed in the past, he sometimes does them in very sloppy ways.
Yeah.
And it's not always obvious whether we should still be asking questions like, say, so who caused the TARDIS to explode in Series 5? And why? And who was that voice that said silence will fall? Like, whether that stuff is still on the table in any meaningful way is completely unclear to me.
Right. Because that was a big thing. That was like at the end of Series 5, the Doctor specifically says, who was that voice?
Well, no, the Doctor never heard that voice.
Oh, well, but didn't he mention... No, what did he say then?
Who's trying to blow up the TARDIS and why?
Oh, that's right. You're right.
But, because I think that voice happened while he was out of the TARDIS. It was just something, the viewer sees the screen, the crack appears on the screen, and then you hear a generically snarling evil voice say, silence will fall.
Yeah, that's right. I'm misremembering things.
So yeah, you get things like that, and as we called it sloppy in the past, and I think that there is a certain sloppiness about the way he handles things. So, I mean, the mystery of Clara, I kind of am wondering how much of what we've seen that seems to be like clues and hints, like the universe holding up its end of the bargain, or things like that, whether any of that really does have anything to do with anything.
Yeah, I guess basically my biggest fear is that she's going to turn out to be kind of another River Song thing where it looks like she's just this random thing the Doctor's encountering, but really it's actually like the Doctor caused her or something. And I'm worried about that. I'm worried that she's not as interesting as she's been made to appear.
But I guess we'll find out soon enough.
I guess so.
Or much later. I thought Jenna Louise Coleman was very good, though. So
yeah,
I think I'm going to enjoy watching her. But the character she was playing here was pretty different from the character she played in Asylum of the Daleks. So who knows what our third Jenna Louise Coleman will even be.
Right. Yeah, that was a thing that was kind of interesting to me, and I wonder if, because chronologically, I guess you could say, this Jenna Louise Coleman is going to be smack dab in the middle of the other two. So maybe she will also be smack dab in the middle personality-wise. Not that I know what that means.
Because she could be just the average of the two of them. Although, who knows what chronology, how that even applies here. It may not.
True.
It could be something like, have you seen City of Death?
Have I?
That's the Fourth Doctor one that's set in Paris and involves the fake Mona Lisa.
Oh, yes!
Yeah, and the villain in that, he's scattered throughout time. There are little bits of him... And they're like different versions of him wherever the Doctor meets a couple different iterations of him. So could be something like that. Could be him. Could actually just be him.
Yeah.
What's his name? I don't even remember his name. Skaroth, I think his name was. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. But yeah, I'm very interested to see what we're going to get.
Speaking of characters who appear to have died but then suddenly aren't dead, Strax is back.
Yeah.
Vastra and Jenny makes a little bit more sense because they didn't die.
Right.
Whereas we're told that the Doctor mentions here that someone brought Strax back to life, but doesn't explain anything about that.
And you know what? I'm completely fine with that. it's kind of taking the whole nobody's really dead in Doctor Who thing to the extreme.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that at least that some kind of explanation is given, as like he says here that Strax was a friend of his that died, and then another friend of his brought him back to life. I'm hoping that we'll find out who that is.
No, I'm completely fine with not knowing. No, because I mean, it's just going to be some ridiculous explanation anyway. I mean, I guess it would be interesting to know who brought him back, but no. I don't. At this point, I don't even need an explanation for why a character is back.
That's kind of funny, because in that very same episode, Dorium dies, and then later we find Dorium as a head in a box.
Yeah,
that works. I mean, Strax can be back if he wants to be back. I really like Strax, and I really like Vastra and Jenny. So
I mean, yeah, I'm completely fine with just, honestly, they could just bring any character back at this point, and just with the explanation is, like, I thought you died, and it's like, nah, I got better. I'd be completely fine with that.
Well, what if that's the explanation for Clara?
Sure, why not? Well, that might be a little bit of a letdown, okay, but certainly minor characters, I think.
I mean, it does appear that from the trailer that we've seen of the second half of Series 7, that Strax and Vastra and Jenny are going to appear again.
Are they? I didn't notice that.
I believe or at least a Sontaran was in the trailer. Could have been any Sontaran.
It literally could have been.
Because they are clones, but
yes.
I'm just hoping that they're being set up for a spin-off.
Set in Victorian London?
Yeah, sure.
I would totally watch that.
I would probably watch it too. I would watch almost any Doctor Who spin-off, to be honest.
Yeah. I think that's the case for me as well.
Have you watched K9?
I knew you were going to ask that, and no, I have not. Because I was away for Christmas, I left I had set up my DVR to record all the episodes, because they were coming on, I think, Sci-Fi, right?
Yeah, Sci-Fi premiered all 26 episodes on the same day.
Yeah, so I thought I would be clever and have my DVR record them all while I was away, and then there was some sort of error and nothing recorded while I was gone.
Wow. I recorded them all, but I have yet to watch them. I'll probably watch at least 2 of them, and then either decide to watch the whole thing or decide to delete the whole thing.
Yeah, that could really go either way.
I haven't heard very much about it, but I have a strong feeling it's really terrible.
Well, because it wasn't put on by the BBC. It was some Australian, wasn't it? Like some Australian thing?
Well, that's racist. I mean, just because it's Australian doesn't necessarily mean it's bad.
I didn't mean offense to our Australian friends. I merely meant it's the only Doctor Who spin-off that I'm aware of that was not put on by the BBC, and therefore I am suspicious of it.
Well, it's the only ongoing Doctor Who spin-off TV show that was not created by the BBC. Like, during the time when Doctor Who was off the air, there were various, straight to VHS movies featuring, monsters were not owned by the BBC.
Really?
Like, a whole lot of Doctor Who monsters aren't owned by the BBC. Like, the Silurians and the Sontarans, I think. All thems. The Daleks aren't owned by the BBC.
I knew about the Daleks, but I didn't know about the other ones.
I think lots of stuff isn't. Like, for instance, there's one that's called Downtime. I don't even know who the monster is, because I've never seen any of these. Downtime introduced the character of Kate Stewart, who went on to appear in The Power of Three.
Ah.
Introduced the notion that the Brigadier had a daughter named Kate, but then there's also, like, some of these, even like the Brigadier is even in at least one of them, and I think Sarah Jane is in one of them.
Huh.
Like various other, like, companions and people like that. They don't have the rights to use the Doctor, but they have the rights to use various other bits and pieces of the Doctor Who universe. Whereas I think the K9 series is just K9 and no other bits and pieces.
Huh. Interesting.
And K9 regenerates, apparently.
What?
He regenerates. That's my understanding. I haven't seen it, as I said. My understanding is that, you start with K9 looking like classic design of K9, but at some point early on, he regenerates into the new design, and I believe they call it regeneration.
That's really interesting. I remember seeing some sort of trailer, I guess, for this show, and I do recall the design being very different, but that's very interesting. I guess they were just they didn't want to have to deal with something on wheels.
No, they didn't want to have to drag it along with a wire.
And you know what? I really don't blame them. I liked all the references to Sherlock, or Sherlock Holmes, I should say. They didn't reference Sherlock specifically.
I think one thing that was a pretty specific Sherlock reference, I feel like the music, the Murray Gold soundtrack, the score, when the Doctor comes in and is impersonating Sherlock, isn't specifically the music from Sherlock, but it's very much a style parody of the style of the soundtrack, I felt like, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah, I missed that. I have to go back and listen to it.
If you go back and rewatch that scene, pay attention there, because I feel like he's definitely putting on an impersonation of that style. But yeah, the Sherlock Holmes stuff was pretty great.
Yeah, I think it's quite apparent that I almost felt like Stephen Moffat was advertising Sherlock in that episode.
Well, I mean, I'm fine with him doing that as long as we get new episodes of Sherlock reasonably soon.
I agree with that. And I think that the Sherlock episodes should make some Doctor Who reference. I think it's only fair.
Yeah, it's only fair.
I wonder if Doctor Who the show does exist in the Sherlock universe.
Probably, I would assume. But it's kind of weird how like various actors coexist. So someone could say to Lestrade, he could be like, "Hey, I was watching Doctor Who the other day. There's the one with dinosaurs in it. The guy on there looks just like you."
So that'd be really weird, especially now, once John and Sherlock watch this Christmas special, then we really weirded out.
Yeah. It's going to be very strange to them. Apparently, this was, or at least part of this episode was based on a Douglas Adams idea.
Really?
Because back when Douglas Adams was working on the show, he pitched a few ideas, some of which were rejected, and eventually found their way into his novels. Oh. But one idea that he pitched was the notion that the Doctor retires. So this obviously would have been Tom Baker.
Right.
And the idea I think he had was that the Doctor would retire, but then like stuff would keep dragging him out of retirement. So it's not really all that similar. But I know Moffat, I think he mentioned in an interview or something that he had heard Douglas Adams talk in an interview about, the Doctor retires being a plot idea. And he just said, "Oh, I'll have that."
There you go. I mean, it's not, it's kind of certainly for fiction at large, that's not like an unheard of idea that a character retires and comes out of retirement.
No, you're certainly right about that. But more than anything, actually, it kind of reminds me of An Unearthly Child, where the Doctor is, he's sort of living on the outskirts. He doesn't want to get involved with anybody. He's kind of like, go away, leave me alone. Except in the end of An Unearthly Child, he kidnaps some school teachers. Whereas in this,
that's certainly different.
Yeah, he doesn't do that. Also, in An Unearthly Child, the TARDIS, it's beaten up and stuff like that, and it's kind of old and it's spooky, but it's in a junkyard instead of, like, on a magical cloud.
Yeah, I kind of found that interesting. That was an interesting kind of visual representation of the Doctor being removed from things, because certainly he's never gone to that lengths to hide the TARDIS before, ever.
Yeah, I don't know how much sense it really makes. I mean...
Really?
Why would he go to all that trouble to...
Especially when River had just fixed the cloaking device. She went through all that trouble, and now the Doctor's not even using it.
Yeah, I mean, he could just, land it in, say, a junkyard. Like, he's done that before. Instead, he builds a magic cloud with a magic staircase, and I like that stuff. Like, I thought those scenes were really cool. They looked cool. They were very, atmospheric and emotional and stuff like that with, going up and down the staircase. And I thought all that was pretty cool. It just kind of doesn't make all that much sense.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah. I mean, it was, my first thought was like, wow, this is really like a fairy tale, which, obviously has been kind of a big theme in the Moffat era. But yeah, no, I mean, I guess it doesn't make a whole lot of sense thinking about it, which I try not to.
Like, if the Doctor wants to keep the TARDIS in an out-of-the-way place where no one can access it whenever he lands, which he generally does. He doesn't want people, like, paying too much attention to the TARDIS. Why doesn't he just always do that? Just always park it in cloud mode. I mean, I think it might just be that's where everything's going. Like, everything's moving to the cloud these days.
Yes, cloud-based TARDISes. Well, it's more reliable and...
Yeah, the TARDIS now has cloud storage. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I imagine it's kind of difficult to set up, which is maybe why he has never done that before.
He must be using iCloud. It's
yeah.
terrible.
Because that only works if you've got an iDevice, which is,
Well, I mean, the TARDIS, come on.
Well, oh yes.
Now that I've stumbled upon that pun, I'm probably just never going to let it go. The cloud pun. It hadn't occurred to me until just moments ago. But
there you go. No, you hang on to that pun.
I will.
That one's yours. But I like the sort of that sort of contrast where, normally the Doctor just parks it on like a street corner and he's right there, in the middle of things, which can be problematic at times, like where the TARDIS is, somehow blocked in or something by some circumstance, like it falling through the whatever, I forget if it was like a planet or something in the Satan pit where like it falls, it gets separated from anyway, the point being that sometimes that causes problems, that it's too close to the action.
Yeah.
Whereas if it were always on a cloud, it'd always be nice and safe, and that would be boring.
Yeah. Although, in this particular instance, it was on a cloud, and the ice governess got in, so I guess it's not that safe.
I guess not.
It's not very common that bad people get into the TARDIS.
That's true.
Probably what happens when you leave the door open.
Yeah, probably. So there wasn't a whole lot I disliked about this episode. In fact, I can't really think of anything that I disliked.
There were two things I disliked about this episode.
Okay.
One thing, I thought the Doctor was a little mean to Strax.
Aw, well, I guess.
Maybe a little bit racist.
He did make fun of his little legs, and the potato comments were a little bit harsh, I guess.
Yeah. Also, I thought the winter is coming Game of Thrones thing, if that's what that was supposed to be. I feel like saying that once was enough.
Yeah, I myself have never read or watched Game of Thrones, but even I knew that was a Game of Thrones thing.
I feel like it's possible that Stephen Moffat just didn't even realize it because he's kind of out of touch in weird ways, I find. Like, for instance, in Sherlock, there were references to Irene Adler's camera phone. Like, who says camera phone at any point after 2005?
That's true. That's true. That's funny because that's no longer a big deal anymore. Like, it's no longer a big deal that your phone can take pictures. Now I'm trying to think of the last time I said camera phone.
For me, it was about 70 seconds ago. Well, not even that many. It was more like 30.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because we now have smartphones.
It's better because you would never call a camera smart.
No, certainly not.
If anything, I mean, you could call a camera obedient because it certainly does what it's told when you press its button.
And the phone she used in the episode was visibly, it was definitely a smartphone. It wasn't a feature phone. It was some kind of smartphone. I don't remember what.
Yeah.
So those are my two things.
Okay. I don't disagree with you. But overall,
and basically based on those two things, I think the show is ruined. It's ruined forever.
There's no recovering from that.
Where do you think it stacks up in the pantheon of Doctor Who Christmas specials?
Well, I think it easily bests The Next Doctor in terms of Victorian stories. It might even be better than Christmas Carol.
Yeah, personally, I would not say that.
See, the thing is, the difference between this episode and A Christmas Carol is that A Christmas Carol featured a ridiculous scene where they are shown lassoing a shark to a carriage and then flying through the skies. And this episode didn't have that, so I think it's got a little bit of a leg up.
I like the shark, personally. I thought that episode, for one thing, A Christmas Carol is a whole lot Christmassier than this. This episode wasn't very Christmassy at all. It happened to be set on and around Christmas Eve, I guess. I think they mention at one point that it's Christmas Eve. It's just a cold day in Victoria, London, which is fine. But watching it doesn't really feel like a Christmas special, does it? It just feels like an episode of Doctor Who.
Well, now hold on, because I would argue that is the case for most of Doctor Who Christmas specials. Certainly the Christmas Invasion.
I mean, well, most of the Christmas specials are, big, broad appealing, got lots of slapstick comedy in them, got lots of, not a lot of continuity-based things like returning monsters from the 1960s or references to one-off appearances of this character in a previous episode. This is very continuity-laden, very downer ending, because she dies, obviously.
That's true.
I don't know. Just doesn't have everybody saying, Merry Christmas, everybody. Let's get drunk and put on paper hats. Like, there's not a lot of that.
Yeah, well, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. It is, yeah, I guess it's certainly less standalone than most other Christmas specials.
And it doesn't even have Merry Christmas, everybody.
That's true. Although we did get it in The Power of Three, so I feel like this episode almost gets a pass because it was already covered sometime this season. But yeah. Is it so hard for them to just incorporate that? Would it kill him?
It would have been hard in this one, I think.
No, I'm sure they could have. Let's see. Okay, well, the Doctor could have been listening to it in the TARDIS. I'm sure the TARDIS has some sort of sound system.
I'm sure.
See, that's how you cover that base. You just have it playing on some time-bending radio in the TARDIS.
Well, we don't even know that the Doctor has ever heard that song, because I think that song only ever plays in scenes where he's not around.
Is that true?
I think so.
That would be really funny.
He might not know that song.
He might not, because let's see. I don't remember how they use it in the Christmas Invasion.
Isn't it playing in the garage where Mickey's working?
Oh, that's right.
And then he hears the TARDIS materialize and goes running toward it. Is that what happens? I'm trying to remember.
Yes, that is what happens. I do remember that. But in The Runaway Bride, it is playing...
It might be playing at the wedding reception, in which case
yes.
the Doctor probably did hear it.
Well, actually, what happened was, if I'm recalling correctly, that song is playing, then Donna walks in all upset and the music stops. So it could very well be that the Doctor didn't get a chance to hear it before it stopped playing.
Yeah, he comes in after her, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. So there you have it.
That song does play again in Turn Left.
Yes.
But that's in the world without the Doctor.
Right.
So he certainly didn't hear it there.
So yeah, he does not even know this song exists, as far as we know.
I think that's the ultimate tragedy of Doctor Who.
This song is just interwoven into the show's continuity, but the Doctor doesn't even know. Maybe that's going to be the 50th anniversary. That's going to be the big deal. You thought it was going to be the question and silence will fall and all that stuff, but that was just a big red herring for the fact that it's actually going to be revealed that this song has always... It would actually be really funny if the song were somehow... If this song somehow did matter to the plot.
Both this song and the American newsreader Trinity Wells... who was in almost every Russell T Davies episode that was set on present day Earth.
Yeah.
And was also in Torchwood and Sarah Jane Adventures. But so yeah, in conclusion, not quite as good as A Christmas Carol.
Yeah, I get it.
Had Michael Gambon. I don't know. You don't have to agree with me.
All right. Then you know what? I won't. I don't know. I think I like this episode a little bit more. But I do think that there is something to be said for a Christmas special that's almost entirely standalone, which I think A Christmas Carol most certainly is. Or it most certainly is more standalone than this episode.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give it that.
Like, for instance, A Christmas Carol is something I can see myself pulling off the shelf in like 20 years' time and watching with the family and having a good time. Whereas this, not so much.
Yeah, true.
I'm talking specifically like on Christmas Eve or something.
Right. Well, yeah, I agree with that, because this episode is just so laden with continuity that that it makes it difficult. But then again, it is almost a good sort of story that it's at a turning point, I guess you could say, in the Doctor's life, where he's out of retirement he's retired, and then this is what brings him out of retirement. So it's kind of Christmassy in that regard. Not really, but just work with me on this. Like, this is, it takes, I don't know.
I don't know either.
I thought I had something there, but then it just kind of faded.
I'm sorry.
Ultimately, I do agree. I think that A Christmas Carol is probably the most versatile of Christmas specials we've gotten from Doctor Who. So in that sense, yeah, I think that it's got more staying power, I guess.